While Sabrina is getting set up here, I just wanted to introduce Sabrina Taylor with Gray Consulting. And Sabrina is based out of Saskatoon, and she is an expert in the world of social media strategy and brand management and brand creation. And we have had her on a few times now over the course of the year, doing a variety of sessions from exactly what I said. Brand, identifying your brand, and some different tools with social media, and then also a few economic development webinars in the world of marketing and branding for your rural community. So here is Sabrina.
Okay. Okay, can you see my screen here?
Yes.
Can you see multiple screens, or can you see just the presentation?
Just your presentation.
Okay, perfect. Okay, welcome everybody. I'm just gonna go back. So today I'm gonna be talking about implementing a refined rural brand. And I'm just gonna dive right in. As Jessica mentioned, my name is Sabrina. I'm the founder of Grace Consulting, which is a brand and marketing consulting company. And I'm just gonna switch my screens here so that I'm looking at you. Normally I would have all of this set up ahead of time. Okay, there we go. Okay, I am a small town girl myself, so I'm from Elrose, Saskatchewan. I am a boy mama. That's one of my biggest accolades, I would say. I've got 2 boys that keep me very busy and keep me very humbled as well. Just a couple things about me. Things I can't live without are chocolate and nachos. I actually consider them food groups and sometimes meals in and of themselves. And what I'm super passionate about is when I can help propel other businesses forward. That is my deepest passion, when I can see others growing in what their business is doing and how they can impact the world in what they're providing, whether it's services or products. I've had many careers, not just jobs, but full-on different careers. I obtained my marketing degree at the U of S while also working as a hairstylist. And then babies came along and I became a Pilates instructor. And now I returned full circle back to my marketing background. Okay, so today I'm just going to go over what we'll be covering. So part 1 is going to be about branding. So really defining what a brand is, the difference between branding and marketing. Sometimes people don't really fully understand. They can kind of mesh those two. Why branding is important, why consistency is absolutely critical, what a brand strategy is, and then I'll kind of pause and let you have some time for questions and discussion then, just so it's not a fire hose of information. Then we'll go into particularly about rural branding, how a brand looks, sounds, feels for a rural community, because it's different than say a product or service. How a rural brand can turn into money. So the economic development impacts of having a really great rural brand, and some examples, some do's and don'ts. I'll run through some of the Sage Hill rural community brands themselves, which is always kind of fun. And I love doing this. I love doing the research on this because I get to learn little quaint things about some of the communities. And then again, questions and discussion. And then we'll talk about implementation. So how to actually implement this in your communities, why it would be important to you as potentially a business owner or part of your communities, and how to look for those inconsistencies and unique opportunities when you can really showcase the essence of a community. And then again, establishing those congruencies and collaborations with other business partners as well. Okay, so what is a brand? A brand is who you are as a community. So how you make people feel, the relationships and the people, the overall vibe of a community. So I'm sure you can all think of different towns that are, maybe more sports oriented or very cultural. They've got a lot of history. really family oriented, lots of maybe young families, lots of family activities to do. There can be certain festivities that a community does. So whether it's, an annual ball tournament or craft shows or fundraisers, and the more consistent those things happen, they just become known as, oh, for sure, we're going to go to the, ball tournament in Kalonzai every year. That's what happens. I don't know if Kalonzai has a ball tournament, but just an example. And it's the values your community embodies. So what is important to your community? Maybe that ball tournament is like everyone comes on board, everyone pitches in, it just really brings the community together. And then it's the uniqueness. So there's little quirks and quaint things about every single small town. And then it's the reputation of that town as well. So a brand is being clear about who you are, what you stand for, and why people should come to you. So the more clear you are about that as a community, then it naturally draws people in. So I always like to do a few different logos and how you feel about them. So we're going to go through and a few of them, and I want you to assess your gut reaction. As soon as you see it, what your gut reaction is. Are they professional? Have you had good experiences or bad experiences? Do you know what each of them are? And are there specific images that pop into your mind immediately? So the first one, I immediately think of my oldest son, and he has a particular pair of pants that are Adidas, is the logo, if you don't know. And a few years ago, he also had to have this specific pair of Adidas shoes. So brand is powerful in his world. Amazon, I love this logo. I don't know, not everyone catches this off the start, but I think it looks like a little smiley face, but it also signifies that they have everything from A to Z at Amazon. And Apple, pretty iconic brand. I think of my computer, my phone, my iPad. I picture their stores, their storefronts, all white, and there's really simplistic, classy packaging. Google, I use Google Maps all the time. I use Google Drive for my business, and I love the editable Google Docs for my business as well. This one elicits frustration for me. I am very much a Mac girl, and I don't love or understand a lot of the Microsoft products and find them very frustrating, but I know that other people very much like them. Obviously, this reminds me of the meeting that we're on. And it also very much reminds me of 2020, where all of a sudden the entire world went on Zoom. This reminds me of my oldest son, because he was begging to be on TikTok, and I withheld for a very, very long time. And but this also reminds me of 2020. I went on TikTok and would watch the most ridiculous dog and baby videos for a while, and attempting some of the trending dances. So don't judge, we were all doing our best during quarantine. And this makes me think of marketing my business. It's my go-to social media platform. And I did not allow my son again to have an Instagram account until he was 13. This platform makes me think of the demographic. So I often guide my clients on, if you are on Facebook, you pretty much need a Facebook platform regardless, but being conscious of the fact that it's usually a 40+ age demographic that is on Facebook, as opposed to Instagram is a bit younger of a demographic. LinkedIn, professional social platform. This reminds me of when I was a stay-at-home mom. I actually didn't think I belonged on LinkedIn, which was kind of a weird concept to think of. And I actually decided, I went on there and I put that I was a stay-at-home mom, and I did this whole write-up of, feeling like really expressing that I considered it a career at that point in my life. I'm fairly neutral on this one, but I know that I've seen some very, very strong opinions in regards to this brand. Okay, and then I wanted to jump into some specific Sage Hill area brands. So immediately, you know, whether you've been to the Manitou Springs spa, you know, this can elicit different thoughts in your mind. Very well done logo. Also, Watrous, I wanted to put this right after because sometimes even hearing the name Watrous can also make you think immediately of the mineral spa. But I love that Watrous has its own logo, its own brand, its own look and feel to it. And then also Danceland, I think of when I think of Watrous as well. It's very, that draws in a lot of people to the community. And another one, I really like this logo and tagline for Rosthern. So where lifestyle counts. Waka. So interesting, very interesting things about Waka. So the tagline is a caring community. And I wanted to just read a little bit from off of their website. So what's behind the name Waka is the Cree word meaning crooked in relation to the nearby lake. Waka Lake is 1 kilometer east and expands 19 kilometers in length. It's home to over 800 cabins. I knew there was a lot, but I didn't realize there was 800. So it's a very popular place for that. Some history is Eastern Europeans were the early settlers in the town of Waka. It was founded on December 26, 1911. And what else did I want to tell you about that? Oh, the town of Waka was home to Prime Minister John Diefenbaker. He opened the very first law office in Waka from 1919 to 1925. So really cool historic facts that are being projected on their website. And then the town of Young. So I really loved this sign, and they really play on the word forever young. So I just loved their signage. And they also have a great welcome sign. And then the iconic small town restaurants. They are, you know, in just about every small town, unless they are, you know, a really tiny town that can't support a full-on restaurant. Also iconic are the small town grain elevators. This can also serve as the signage because quite often they have the name of the town listed right on them. And they are a true significance and part of the overall brand of Saskatchewan, the Saskatchewan prairies and the farming communities. Town of Aberdeen, the logo. And then I also wanted to show another grain elevator picture as well for Aberdeen. So what is branding? So branding is different than the word brand itself. So I wanted to go into that. So branding is your not just your logo, and that's often what people think, but it's your overall visual identity, which includes your logo, color palette, and your fonts. It's your messaging, your mission, vision, and your why. It's your voice, so the tone and essence of how you're speaking about your community and the communications that are going out. It's your graphics and images, your packaging, storefront, displays, and then it's artistic and action-based. And then this is where some people get confused in branding and marketing and the differences. So marketing is the distribution of the branding. So these are the platforms that you use to propel your brand. So whether it's social media, email campaigns, websites, brochures, billboards, advertising, those entrance signages, all of that. And then it's logistics and action-based. So it lets people know about you, where to find you, how to purchase, what you offer, how to contact you. And it speaks to the mind, not necessarily the heart, whereas branding goes straight to the heart. So often people don't really think of how colors make them feel. And so I love this, this image because it really shows you how the different brands, very iconic brands, have chosen their colors. So yellow being optimism, clarity, and warmth. Orange being that friendly, cheerful confidence. And you think of Orange Crush or Fanta. Those are two that are listed there. Red is exciting, it's bold. Purple is creative, wise. Blue elicits trust and strength. Green is that peaceful, or like a lot of health businesses will use green. And then gray can be that balance or that calming. And then you'll notice that Google, eBay, NBC up in the corner there, they really want to promote diversity. So they've got a multicolored logo on purpose. So some color combos. So when I work with clients, I will go through a brand intake form, and I will get some information from them, and we'll start to kind of draw out what it is that they're looking for. So I will always have an inspiration photo that goes along with color combinations, and inspiration words. So words that come up that the photo elicits, or ones that out of the brand audit that I do, what they want to convey. So this one, we kind of pulled out trendy, bright, natural, neutral. This one is more like welcoming, nature, outdoors, earth-rooted, strong. This one, the inspiration words are retro, boho, trendy, lighthearted, and free-spirited. So you can really see how different images and different colors can really elicit a different look and feel. And then just some examples of logos that my company has done. And then I wanted to show you typography. So the difference in the fonts that you're using can play a big part in how you're conveying your messaging, and I'll get into consistency with that as well. But just to show you kind of how that can be laid out. And I wanted to show Bruno in this because I noticed on their website in particular that they use the same kind of scripted font, not only in the top header, but then they also use it throughout the site. So things like that will just immediately show professionalism, and you will notice it when it's off, and it will elicit feelings of like, oh, okay, like comfort and familiarity when it's on target. So I'm going to do a fun name the brand. So if you want, you can pop it into the comments. And these are specific taglines. So there are some things money can't buy. For everything else, there's, and if anyone knows. So what I find fun about taglines is the more you hear them and the more repetitive they are through their marketing channels, then you just start to recall them. My youngest son will he'll say random ones all the time. And as a marketing person, I think, oh yeah, that's working. Even, little kids can recall them. So this one is MasterCard. Just do it. Be sure.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah. What's in your wallet? This one is Capital One. You're richer than you think. This one is Scotiabank. Snap, Crackle, Pop. I think most people know this one, which is Rice Krispies. So why is branding important? People want to work in and trust and support a community that they trust. So it's that familiarity, it's the trust, it's the recognition, and it's comforting. Shared values ultimately shape your communities. So when your community has values that are collective, that is the ultimate brand of your community. So it's what you stand for, what change you want to bring about, and what you care most about. This creates clarity and helps you to stay focused. So when it's clear on who a community is, it can help with decision making. A clear brand strategy makes it easy to say no to things that don't align. So for an example, your community could be really focused on maybe mental health is one thing that they, as a collective, that they want to support. So when another organization or a charity comes along and wants you to maybe support them, not that you can't for sure, but maybe it's on the same date as something that you've done as a community every year. It's easier to say no when you're super clear on, nope, this is what we want to do. This is what we support. This has kind of become what we're known for. It helps to connect your community on an emotional level. So it can be something that they're proud of, something that they bond over, something that they can represent, and something that they can be a part of. So one of the greatest human needs is to belong. A strong brand provides value to your community in big ways. So we'll go over more of this in depth of how a strong brand can create revenue for your community, enhance the overall economic development. Cohesiveness in your brand creates both comfort and credibility. It's human nature to feel comfort in familiarity, being led down a path of like objects and signage. So if you think of, say you're on a hike and there's all these signs that are green along the way, and they've got the same font, the same look and feel to them, they're the same shape, and you're just going along on this hike, sign after sign, and then all of a sudden you get to a point where all of a sudden the sign is different. You will immediately feel like, well, I don't know what direction to go. It's pointing this way, but all the other signs have been, green and a certain color. So you immediately have a feeling of, oh, I don't know now, which is what happens when brands are not consistent as well. There's a perceived professionalism, and trust increases when a brand is cohesive and consistent. So just some examples of a cohesive brand. So when the look and feel and color scheme across platforms, it immediately elicits that feeling of like, oh, okay, like they know what they're doing and you can recognize right away. A couple more examples of just that cohesiveness of the look, the feel, the colors, the font, everything all comes together. So we'll go into why that consistency is so critical. So we touched on these. It's familiarity. There's a sense of knowing what to expect. The trust, you know what to expect and eliminate surprises. And then that means that trust naturally builds. Comforting. It's ultimately comforting when you know what to expect and you see, oh, okay, that's a consistent brand. Recognition allows your community to be known, so you can immediately be recognized. And the recall, so the greater chance of remembering names, colors, and essence. And it's a reminder. So when your brand is seen and heard over and over, it stays top of mind. And also reinforcing. So if someone continues to hear the name, sees the logo, you're building that credibility and trust purely by the repetition, and the brain naturally looks for patterns for association, and it will just continue to reinforce that brand. The opposite happens if you don't have those patterns of repetition, and differing messages can, trust diminishes, the credibility kind of goes out the window, and there's nothing that stands out or is recognizable or memorable. So you always want to aim for that. Going back to the Apple brand. So why is it that their brand is so powerful? And the biggest thing is because it does not waver. Imagine if all of a sudden Apple's logo was red, their storefronts were purple, their packaging was green, and their website started talking and branching off into the clothing and food markets. And they started to make their technology products at a hugely discounted rate and very low end. I'm not going to lie, I would love if they discounted their products, but it wouldn't, that doesn't align with their brand at all. Now, this is extreme, but this is how damaging veering off of your brand can be. It doesn't seem like it should matter if a font is just slightly off, or if the colors of your logo are different, or the sizes, or your tagline isn't right in certain places, but it really does. And us as consumers, we wouldn't necessarily notice the little subtleties unless you're in the marketing field, and then it actually drives you crazy when you see those things. And we appreciate really good, consistent branding. But these things are definitely impacting buying decisions. And I will venture to say that Apple has several brand managers gatekeeping with a strict set of guidelines for every product and communication that goes out for their brand. So how to maintain that brand consistency? So it really requires that you guard and protect your brand with high standards of expectation. So you diligently deliver your brand consistently across every marketing platform, always reiterating that same message, your values, and your visual identity. This can require some brand police, which can sometimes be hard in rural communities to have people in place to be able to manage this, but it can be built into one of the town roles, someone that's passionate about it and willing to see it through to the best fit. And these are things that can be brought to attention at community meetings. And sometimes all it takes is one person that is passionate about it, and then kind of the rest of the community will start to follow. So this is another example of brand cohesiveness. This immediately makes you feel comfortable. You can trust this company, and they look very professional. So that's the powerful power of a brand strategy in action, with its visual identity, that piece in place and on point. And these are in several different platforms. So you can see that consistency is across the social media, email campaigns, website, lots of digital platforms. So getting into what is a brand strategy. So when you're developing a brand, all of these components are part of it. So the essence and the vibe, which is your brand personality, that emotional connection, the shared values, and then going into voice and messaging. So it's your purpose, your vision, your mission, who your target audience is, the goals that you're trying to achieve with your audience. And then it's the color palette, the visual parts, the typography and the font, the mood board, which can be images and graphics. And then it's also includes the distribution. So the social media, websites, emails, advertising, signage, specific events. And so I love this quote: brands are essentially patterns of familiarity, meaning, fondness, and reassurance that exist in the minds of people. Does anyone have any questions at this point? I just want to open it up. It's a lot of kind of like, how does this apply, or how does this make sense? Any questions pertaining to the people that are here today with their role in their communities? And if not, that's okay too. I can leave time at the end if there are more questions.
I have a question.
Yes.
In terms of working with rural communities, official community plans or planning documents that council develops, in my mind, have a very clear link to this sort of thing. And then also for me, I'm a programmer. So how do we do events? How do we meet community needs with events of whatever size? But you've got this big thing, the community plan. You've got branding, which is often like my colleague's department or someone, with someone else. It's not necessarily a council project. What are some observations maybe you've seen in working with communities, how council and staff, senior staff working with a community plan make a connection to what you're talking about, brand marketing? I feel like sometimes there's a divide, or like people aren't making the connection. So I'm just curious if you've seen examples, helped councils with this kind of stuff. Yeah.
You know what, I haven't directly worked with councils on it, but I kind of mentioned that a few slides ago on, you really need one person, or like ideally multiple, but I know sometimes that's not possible. People that are on the same page and understand the importance of it, because not everyone sees the importance or value in it. And that's often what needs to be conveyed. And it usually takes that one person to kind of spearhead it. No matter what role they're in, they can really kind of take charge of it. And it's really bringing everyone on board as much as they can. So any chance in community meetings to bring up the importance of it, and then start to showcase it. So really show like, this is how, yeah, just, and I would be more than happy to provide those, like some of these examples anytime for sure. But yeah, it's just, I think showing the importance of it and the reasoning behind it is always what will help drive people to make that change, and just getting as many people on board as possible. Because yeah, there can be a lot of disconnect, which then breaks down the community brand itself. But great question. It's definitely not an easy task, but it usually just takes that one person to come to a presentation like this and go, yeah, like we really want that in our community. Oh, I should wait, I guess. Are there any other questions at all before I jump in? Okay, so I'll just dive into specifics about a rural brand. So there are nuances and differences when, you know, you're talking about, it's easy to talk about branding when it's a business or a service that's being offered. But when you're talking about a rural brand, it can be a little bit tricky. So I wanted to show some examples of, so Kalonze, they've got a logo, they've got a tagline, they've got signage when you enter the town. Already, they've got a look and a feel and of their community just by some of those pieces. I wanted to showcase, this is Humboldt's website. So along with the tangible, you know, signage that is at when you enter a community, also the online representation needs to match. So if the sign when you enter Humboldt is, you know, bright purple, and it is different than what is on their website, that's an example of a disconnect in the rural brand. This particular website really drew me in. I really found that even on the website, there's a ton of consistency throughout with the color palette and the font and all of that, which sometimes there can be a lot of inconsistency even in one digital platform. And then you multiply that by, you know, then it looks different on social media than on their website. And then within the town, and there's a lot of, you know, could possibly be different variations of logos or the way that the town is represented. So just really bringing that all together as much as you can. I wanted to showcase this. If anyone knows off the top of your head, this is a town not in Saskatchewan, but in Alberta. And I wanted to just show this as an example because it's very iconic and really kind of showcases how they can take one specific thing that's iconic in their town and really play on it. So it's the town of Vegreville, and you'll notice that from that like giant Easter egg, they've taken the same colors and the same little patterns, and they've worked that into their logos. They've got those little kind of things tagged on at the end, and then they just transfer that right through to their website, which has, you know, that attraction for people to come and visit. But then they've used that color scheme throughout. So just a small example of how they've taken a specific cultural piece, but they've weaved it into the overall brand, and it's also an attraction. And yeah, they give all of that information. Another one here in Saskatchewan that I thought did a really great job is Tiger Hills. So Tiger Hills Outfitters, and I learned all about waterfowl hunting that they do. So they do a really great job of, showing that they are a professional company and this is something that they're drawing in particular to Tiger Hills. This is their website that I loved the way that they brought this all together. So immediately you feel like, oh, okay, they've actually got something going on there. I think rural communities in Saskatchewan in particular can sometimes come under scrutiny of like, oh, it's just small town Saskatchewan, but when their branding and that cohesiveness is done well, immediately people are like, oh, they've got stuff going on out there, and it just immediately draws people in, and they want to either know more about it, visit the town, potentially move there, live there, start a business there. So that naturally ties into how a rural brand turns into money. So it can be easier to attract investors for a community that is well branded, purely because there's more credibility and trust that the money will be handled well. People want to be part of a community that they feel a connection to. And when word gets out and the reputation and value and the excitement spreads, people will want to come to events in your community. So it draws external people in. And then also a unified community where people feel that they belong, have the opportunity to contribute and feel they're working towards a greater good and a purpose beyond themselves. As I mentioned, it can attract people who want to start businesses there. It can bring families in where they feel safe for their families and their children, brings in tourism and excitement, and creates that unity. Some rural brand do's and don'ts. So I like to pick on my small town. So, one thing that they do really well is playing on the portion of the name with Rose in it. So their signage has that right when you enter a town. I really feel passionate about the signage when you enter a community. I really feel like that sets the tone as soon as you drive in. So now some things that, are maybe a little off in what they're doing is when I, look them up online in particular in terms of their digital presence, is they were a little bit all over the map with how many different platforms they have and the inconsistency with how they're being represented. So I'm not really sure what the banner is at the top. I think it's an upside down class of something on there. But then they do have the little sign as the logo in the corner. So that's a plus. But then there's also another Facebook page of the library. And it's got its own, again, look and feel to it, which you wouldn't know, is this part of, like, other than it saying Elrose Library, you're not really sure. And it feels very, very different. And then there's the tavern, which also doesn't have any consistency in branding across it. And not that it's a bad thing. I always, something is better than nothing always, in terms of like just someone taking the initiative to have a digital presence, because not everyone wants to take that on. But there is just value, as I've mentioned, in having the consistency, whether it's even just the circle logo part, the profile logo being the same. Any platform that is representing the town, it's got the same little profile logo. And then there's also a ball team one as well. So sometimes within a community, there can be specific groups that also have their own branding, which is awesome. It's great. But when you're developing that branding, you also want to take into consideration what has maybe already been established. And this is where, if there isn't a strong brand that's been established, you'll get random things all over the place with different colors, different look and feel to them. And so that again can just make the community feel a little bit like just scattered. and bringing that back in, like, not that everything has to be all the same, but there can be slight variations or complementary to the overall color scheme. So for example, Elrose could take that rose feature and that red could be their staple color in every single thing that's out there. So that could be the one thing that's like, no matter what you're doing with your team or with your fundraiser or with your event, always has to incorporate red, and maybe that rose of some sort could be something that you could do. And then another page I found for the Uniplex, which a lot of small town communities will have, you know, a center. This one in Elrose, they have, it's the pool, the curling rink, and the hockey rink all together. And again, they just had another Facebook page that I came across. And then an Instagram account, which is their high school sports teams are the Elrose Eagles. And again, just quite a bit different in terms of their branding and presence that is out there. And these are just very visual ones that I'm showing to you. There's, as I mentioned, you can dive into the messaging and the voice and the tone and all of that that's out there as well.
There's just a comment here, unless just from Guylaine from Roster, and she said, unless it's highly encouraged or put into policy, it may or will be very difficult to get local organizations to have something that matches the town's branding.
Yes, I'd agree fully, unless it's mandated. But again, like I mentioned, sometimes all it can take is one person to really drive that. So there could be kind of a, I don't know, how do I put it? Like if someone is really passionate about it and they push it forward, almost make it a mandate in a way that people start to feel like, oh, like I should really kind of follow that, then people will do it naturally without it having to be a rule. And if someone is like, wants to take it that far, you could, you know, put it into place and make it, you know, your own, make it a policy in your town and make it something that, but also, like I mentioned before, making people understand the importance of it and why they would want to do it and why it's important as a community. If people are just told to do something, they could veer completely the opposite direction, almost like a teenager. If you're trying to tell them what to do, they will run the other direction. But always giving that backstory of why, and like, this is what we're trying to, the ultimate goal. So that's why part of the brand strategy is like, who are you speaking to? Who do you want to attract? What are the goals of your town? And this is one of the key pieces that can help that overall goal. So it's all about communicating that. And I'm not saying that it's easy by any means. There are lots of differing opinions out there, different people on councils, different views on what they think that the direction should go. And so, yeah, I get it.
You know, Sabrina, one thing that might come in handy for communities is, you know, if the town, let's say, provided a brand kit and, you know, here is these images you're welcome to use, here's some messaging so that we're all consistent across the board. And then, you know, as new businesses, this is something, you know, there's a package from the town that goes out to businesses across the community or organizations within the community. And just to provide that framework, you know, would be really nice.
Yep. Often that's why people will veer off. It's not because they want to take down the reputation of the town or they're, you know, doing something different. They just decided that they want to do something, they go for it, but they don't necessarily have access maybe to the logo or understanding. But a brand kit would be amazing to be put in place. And then, when a new business starts, you can offer the brand kit and say, you know, this is where you can grab all of this information. And this is kind of the look and feel that we have in our town. And people will
for sure. Michelle Jansen said, how could a private business owner tie in their branding to the town's branding when they are not similar in any way? No shared colors, etc.
That's a good question. So if there's no shared colors or branding in that way, then that's where community messaging can come in. And so when you're promoting your own brand, tying in maybe some messaging about the community when you are putting yourself out there. So talking about maybe the values in your community, or and then you could, where opportunity presents, bring in some of the town's branding. But a lot of, when you've got your own established look and feel, then you really rely on tone and messaging, then more so than, like, say, the color scheme and the different things there.
And sorry, I just wanted to add in one thing, having the town's web, logo and website at the end of your website, just to create that link back. And if the town site also did that and promoted their businesses and had links back, it also helps obviously with, search optimization and all those things. So it's great to just kind of cooperate. Exactly. You help me, I'll help you. Let's get this ball rolling. Yeah.
That cross promotion is huge. And that alone speaks to the collaboration aspect of it as well. Okay, so some Sage Hill specific rural brand examples. So I wanted to just list some of the names of some of these towns, which is always kind of fun. So this is just, I'm telling you what my immediate thoughts are when I hear some of these town names. So Aberdeen is Shauna Foster's hometown. I know that because she talks about it on the radio all the time. Batoche is got that historical component, the National Historic Battle Site. My sons have traveled there on field trips. Clavet, so what I think of is almost like a suburb of Saskatoon, and because my son had people from Clavet be on his football team one year. When I hear Kalanze, Lanigan, and Jansen, I immediately think of mining. Hague, my mother-in-law used to teach there, and I have heard over and over again, I'm pretty sure it's Hague that has like the most amazing sausage that's being made there. So just little things like that, like where you would go out of your way to drive there to maybe pick up that sausage from there. And, knowing that my mother-in-law taught there, just that brought her to that community, and that community was important to her. And then Hepburn is halfway to where our lake is. So we hit that Hepburn point, and it's like, okay, we've got another 45 minutes to go. So that just stands out in my mind for me. Saint Denis, I immediately think of the Champetre County. Rosthern, my husband loves, there's a golf course there that he talks about, he raves about. So that's a draw for him. Waka, like I mentioned before, it's got the lake, cabins, camping. I know tons of people that will say, oh, I've got a cabin at Waka, or oh, we go camping there. I've got a seasonal site. And then I loved, when I looked up different town names, I was like, I loved that there was a town named Romance. I didn't know that. And then a town named Liberty and a town named Plunkett. I just thought, oh, the branding possibilities with those town names are just endless. So we've had some questions and discussion already, but if I'll just pause for a moment if there's any others. And yeah, I can't see the chat, so you'll have to let me know, Jessica, as you're thinking.
I have a question about the role of regional connection with rural branding. Ghislaine and I are part of what's called the Twin Rivers District, and the opportunities for municipal cooperation are there, but there's also the possibility when it comes to branding and tourism and etc. Just curious about what you're noticing in certain regions of the province around that kind of regional cooperation.
Regional in terms of, like, maybe give me an example. Like,
okay, so in our Twin Rivers area, that would include Hepburn, Laird, Waldheim, Rosthern. It's kind of like along the Highway 12 and then onto 312, gotcha. Secondary highway, or like maybe like whatever, Cypress Hills, Maple Creek comes to mind as a region, but
Mhm.
yeah, because sometimes whatever the energy to brand a town that's under $1,000 and what you have to offer, what else is nearby you, there's some value in that. So I'm just curious about any regional examples that you've come across.
Yeah, absolutely. So there is tons of opportunity to cross promote in that way as well, like Jessica mentioned, and bringing in, so especially I find in Saskatchewan, people love to do little like driving tours. So if they know that there are different opportunities in like within a kilometer range, they love to know about that. And so anytime you can bring different community pieces together, and that's again, in different forms of the distribution. So that could be on a website, on a Facebook page, out in an email. I've seen some really cool newsletters. I've seen some printed brochures that really showcase different regional things to do. Mostly what I've seen is in relation to tourism, but also you can promote that there's, certain grocery stores, or like I mentioned, that sausage place, and people will, if they know about it, they'll make a point of going to those places. And then the cross promotion just shows them, oh, there's also, this town that offers this. I've seen it in close by where our lake is. There is, oh gosh, and I'm going to forget what they're called.
Was it Blaine Lake?
The Doukhobors.
Oh,
So yeah, so right around where our lake is, there's the Doukhobor community and the history there. So there are a bunch of communities that actually come together that really showcase. We've gotten like printed brochures that end up getting handed out at our lake, that we know about all the different community events that are happening, whether it's like snowmobile rallies or things like that come up. And then also different tourism kind of spots around there. So I know people that have done those little driving tours to all the different places. There's the orchard that's out there in that direction as well. And just really fun little quaint communities. That's a great question. And yeah, when it's a tiny, tiny little town, they don't have the budget or the people capacity to market themselves and have that really strong presence themselves. So bringing those communities together is a really great thing. Okay, so moving on to implementation. So keeping in mind that a brand is fluid, it continually needs to evolve with the community and some of the trends. So you want to keep your community fresh while also maintaining its heritage and the history of it. A brand strategy is always where you start. These elements are completely necessary when you're developing a brand strategy. So your purpose, your vision, your mission, it's the why behind what you do. Again, just going back to using the Vegreville example, they do a really great job of, really highlighting that mission, vision, and the core values of the community. This doesn't necessarily have to be something that is always public, but definitely within community meetings, and when it makes sense to talk about these things, when you're trying to really show that importance of it, that is when it's good to have that outlined. You want to have a clear vision and measurable goals. So where are you headed as a community? Are you surviving or are you thriving? Are there areas that you need to develop more? Really knowing where you're headed will help create that path. And your brand personality. So who are you in amongst a sea of other communities out there? What makes you stand out? What are the unique features of your community? Sometimes that takes some digging in and doing maybe a poll of, asking people within the community, what is it that you're proud of? What makes you stand out? And how can we bring value to their lives and connect on an emotional level? So you really want to ask how your community contributes to the overall growth within their people, within their community, within Saskatchewan, within the broader, a broader reach. And then I'm going to talk about consistency and the opportunities that are out there. So you want to look for ways to create that consistency. So we talked about social media, website, signage, any chance that you can to seek those opportunities to engage. So also events, online showcases, types of things that will draw in more people from outside to just grow that economic development of your community. Congruency and that collaboration that we've talked about. So noticing the ways that the brand is already happening and those alignments that are happening, and leverage those alignments. So you don't have to start from scratch. Look at what's working and then take that and just keep it spreading throughout. So like I mentioned with Elrose, they started with, you know, a particular brand, and just you could take that and really run with it, as I said, just incorporating those little pieces. And then I loved Jessica's example of, yeah, like taking that community or that business that's already established, it has its own brand, but then weaving in, when you can, other elements of the town, and even then also regional too, if that is a focus. And then showcasing community groups as well. And anytime, yeah, the cross collaboration is always good. Like it's lifting up the community and it's bringing people together instead of standing alone like an island. Again, we've talked about this, nearby communities, multiple businesses, promotion, community over competition, leveraging other community attractions. There's a huge opportunity to create buzz around provincial travel. With COVID, people were not traveling as far and frequently, but there's a huge opportunity for rural communities to jump on board and create really fun adventures for people in Saskatchewan. And you can partner with other retreat companies. So a couple that come to mind are Back to Nature Wellness here in Saskatoon, but they go to outside communities as well. And then Cedar and Sage Retreats is another one that reaching out to some of those companies that could bring and attract people into their community, or just promoting that it's a collaboration. It's another organization actually that comes to mind that I work with is called Heartlinked, and they bring Indigenous girls to Saskatoon for retreats and allow them to have, and it's a nonprofit, and they allow them to have things and adventures in Saskatoon that they wouldn't necessarily have the chance to have otherwise. So that could be a charity of choice that your community really supports, and you could really tie that into your community's overall mission and vision. So thinking outside the box of not just maybe your community, but things that other people are doing out there that you want to jump on board and support and show that your community values that. I love this, like the Community Futures Sunrise. I did this presentation back in June. So they had just recently launched this new regional, like a multimedia campaign that drives the regional tourism goals forward with the intent to welcome more visitors. So the Explore Southeast Saskatchewan campaign, it launched in June of 2022. And it points users to a number of multimedia sources to learn about the variety of experiences that they can have in Southeast Saskatchewan. So this is a great example of bringing multiple communities together. So there are 8 Southeast explorers, and they'll share their experiences of exploring the region and their own backyards through Facebook, Instagram, and their own social media channels. And then there's a soon to be launched Explore SE Sask website, which I actually didn't look up to see if they've launched it now. I would imagine they have. They will be visiting destination businesses, traveler hotspots, and hidden gems within these communities of Southeastern Saskatchewan. So I really loved it. That's kind of out of the box thinking way to take people and use their experiences in Saskatchewan. So what I'm going to just show you too that the YouTube channel showcasing attractions in and around your community could be something that you could do, a podcast. So interviewing local business owners, social media accounts, having that consistent look and feel, the website, consistent look and feel, the signage, and communications that are going out with a consistent look and feel as well. There was, when I looked at Bruno, I loved it. It was called the Bruno Bits, is their monthly newsletter that they put out. And I just loved that, you know, it's a cute, catchy little name, and it can be something as simple as that, but because like I looked back and they were consistent every single month, like didn't waver on it, then you immediately go, oh, I know that I can rely on this as a up-to-date messaging. Same with any social media platform. There has to be someone that's continually putting things on there. Otherwise, people will lose trust in that form of communication, and it won't be their go-to. Okay, so I just wanted to jump into a little bit of what I do. So you might be thinking like, okay, now what? Like there've been a couple questions of like, I don't even know where to start with this, like understanding the importance yourself, but then walking away from here and going, well, now what? So there can be so many different directions that you can go, especially in the digital world, because there are everything from Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube. There's different email newsletters, Facebook. You can do paid advertising, the search engine optimization, like Jessica mentioned. There's all the algorithms within those platforms that, how do you stay on top of that? And then there's new algorithms that are now out of date since last week. There's reels, there's posts, there's stories. Do I add music? Do I add like GIFs? Like there's just a lot to take into consideration. And then sometimes you can feel like, I don't know how, I don't know what ideas, unsure where to start, not enough people to implement properly. And so this is where I've developed a strategy to simplify it. So I have a marketing degree. I'm educated in all the complex strategies, but my advice is to keep your marketing backpack small. Keep things simple and sustainable, and most importantly, effective. People need to know how great your community is, and they want to know. So as I said, I keep things, my mantra is simple and sustainable. You don't want to launch this giant marketing campaign or this brand strategy that is not, that people can't absorb and they don't understand and they won't be able to keep up with. And I will remind you that the most important marketing message is who your community is. Your best light that's only truly yours, radiated out, is the best thing. So your community is your greatest marketing asset. There's only one of your community and always will be. So with when you do a strategy like this, if we were to work together, your brand will be aligned, your economic development will take off, your community will thrive. All from being authentic, real, sometimes vulnerable, and implementing a simple, sustainable plan. You'll have, like I said, the best light of your community shone forward. It will be effective, there'll be growth, and there'll be fulfillment. People will want to have their kids attend schools, tourists attending events, your growth in your community, and sustained employment and employee satisfaction, greater sense of accomplishment, and they'll feel fulfilled and proud of their community. So if you're still not sure, a brand strategy or rebrand can do all of that, I would love to chat and we can talk through this even more. There are particular nuances in different communities that it's hard to dive in. I do a very broad version of this, but as you know, the questions today have been awesome because every community is different and the challenges in those communities are different. So we can restore that confidence in your marketing. and ensure that your brand reflects your particular community. So I have, it's called Brand You Marketing Toolkits. So we do a brand audit and we develop a brand strategy, and we could do that brand kit as Jessica mentioned as well. So my company, between good and great, there's grace. I love coffee, whether it's virtual and in person. I would love to meet any one of you for a virtual or an in-person coffee, and just even to chat things through. If you ever have questions, feel free to reach out to me anytime. And thank you for having me today. And thank you for all the questions. I love when people engage and ask questions. And if there are any others at this point, I would be happy to answer them as well.
In your experience, Sabrina, with a rural community, you know, you have the town office, and then you have like the town pool, you have the town library, you have all the town things.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that they should be just on one social media platform, or do you think they should have their own pages if they're directly under the umbrella of the town?
Yeah, that is a good question. So a few things. If there isn't someone that can continually keep that platform updated, I would say it should be melded into one that can be. That is number one. If it can't be sustained, then it should be managed under another one. There can be a lot of value in there being one platform that is the go-to to find the information about anything. You can run the risk of it being too much information and too kind of all over the place, that then if they wanted information about one particular, you know, maybe it's just about, using Elrose as an example, the Uniplex, and they want just the, you know, the events that are going on there, and they don't want to know about what's happening at the library, then maybe that might not make sense. But again, it just comes down to that sustainability as well. And the cross promotion. So if there are multiple accounts, again, it's like it can be mentioned and just linked to, and every once in a while, each one of them can link back.
But again, just having a website that has all those departments, and then you can be featuring on social media the different things going on within each department.
Exactly. The website can be the hub,
yes,
of the community, and then there can be the social platforms of each of those different things that are happening in the community. So whether that's events, so maybe there's, you know, a particular like you could have an event and it's got its own Facebook platform for it to promote it, that can link right to there. But from the website is like the home base. Yeah.
No, I think this was really great. I appreciate your time, and thanks everybody for participating in the conversation on the chat and in person, face-to-face with video. I'm going to send out the recording of this and for you to share with your team. And yes, Guylaine just said, municipalities need to realize that hiring a social media website person is key. And I agree, it's huge.
It really is. Yep.
Yeah, there's a lot of people doing things like this off the corner of their desk, and it's just, it gets misplaced.
It does. And having this background information of the why is, and then you can bring that forward as to why it's important to have one particular person really drive that.
So thank you everybody very much for joining today, and thank you, Sabrina.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Oops. Meant to hit and record.